Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. I am still Captain Foley.
And I am still Commander Cockins, and I'm excited for today's Discovery episode. Well, you're going to watch it today, I'm going to watch it tomorrow, but a fan suggested something, and I want to talk about it for today. It's interesting. What is it, Stuart?
They did suggest something, and it's something we didn't think of when we were talking about our Enterprise discussion from episode 1 of season 2. But it is worth pointing out. I mean, a lot of people have made the claim or the speculation that the Discovery Enterprise looks different because
The claim. Well, they've noticed. They've noticed,
Yes.
yeah.
And that it could in fact be a wartime variant for the Constitution class,
Yes.
as per this Klingon war that happened in season 1 of Discovery.
And just to potentially back it up, it's now got phaser ball turrets, which is an improvement over the old. It's now got the new struts, might imply be faster, bigger, because more people in it. Possible
Right.
things.
Yeah. Which brings me to a point I want to talk about in a second. But anyway, so this wartime variant idea is a great idea, and it actually kind of made sense when we first heard it, when we saw the Enterprise at the end of season 1, and we talked about the wartime variant a few times during our discussions.
Yes.
However, in episode 1 of season 2, we learned that the Enterprise was in fact away during doing its 5-year mission during the war and didn't get back in time for the war. So that kind of nixes the whole idea of a wartime variant for the Enterprise. I mean, there could be one for Constitution class vessels that were in the area,
Yeah.
or closer by. They could have got a minor refit, but the Enterprise, no, because it basically, the implication we got was it came back, and that's exactly how it
Always
looked when it came
yeah.
back. Yeah. So the wartime variant idea is great, but at the same time now flawed thanks to Discovery's own canon.
And obviously, we judge these shows by the standards they set. So, and this is the age-old argument, but they're adding new layers to it by telling us information in the show. You know, they said it's prime canon, okay, which means it fits into the cage, and also they're using parts of the cage with the Spocks smiling and such. And number one, I mean, so it's very much using the cage canon, and then TOS canon. We know exactly how big those ships are. We know how they fit into the universe. We know the evolution of scale. We know how they looked in multiple points, even the defined, the variants of the era. We know all that sort of stuff. That's what they're telling us it fits into. And so yes, the wartime variant, we thought, okay, maybe, because obviously the size doesn't work, but the size is, we were hoping they'd re-retcon that because okay, they can sort of change the size. And if you look at 2 ships, then like to the refit, you can see an interesting like thing, and certainly NX to this. But now, if it has always looked like this and 30%, 40% bigger, but it hasn't always looked like this because we know it hasn't, and we saw it in Trials and Tribulations, we saw it in Tomorrow Darkly, so we know exactly how it looks from multiple sources. Two episodes of proof versus 50 years. I'm sure the Enterprise in every episode of TOS, and then like 6 around that. So the evidence is 99% the TOS way, the Discovery way. So what are they trying to tell us here? It's now always been this way?
Possibly. I mean, saw it in the cage. We saw it in Menagerie, where it's basically the exact same ship, and that was 2-3 years prior to what we see in Discovery. So, interestingly enough, that's what I was going to just talk about real quick. I'm reading the novelized, or the written version of the Menagerie now, and Pike actually says to the survivors on Talos 4, well, the people he thinks are survivors, that the Enterprise is in orbit and it's got a crew of 430 personnel. Now these are the novelizations of the episodes, and they are done by, I think, James Blish did them back in the day. So I don't know if that's... It just struck me that the Cage Enterprise is supposed to have like 200 personnel, not 430 like Kirk's Enterprise. But I just read that the other day and thought I'd point it out because it really kind of struck me. So
Yeah. I mean, I've said this before, but out of all the things in Trek, apart from the Katinga in the first season of Enterprise, there are a few things that you can sort of just retcon out of whole cloth. And the Cage visual continuity, I think, is the most justifiably retconnable, because I mean, look at the communicator and the laser. I mean, these things, they are so abstractly different and much more. They weren't forward thinking. They were just sci-fi. Big distinction there. I mean, yes, it had the flip, but it wasn't. You know, you had to have it on a table. It clearly wasn't mobile, and because the prop was too sensitive. And so if you did then, you know, say, okay, the Cage Connie always looked like this. This was the Pike Connie. It wasn't a War Variant. It was the original version, which then evolves into the TOS Connie. You know, simpler, sleeker in its own way. You know, simplicity comes. You know, I would say, look at our phones. I mean, compare these to 10 years ago. These are smaller and sleeker because that's sort of where technology goes. You can still do that. Obviously, the ship is still bigger, but that's a flaw in the inner continuity of Discovery because they were forced to do that. It's just we're trying to grasp at straws to try and make, because the job is they're telling us this makes sense, or well, no, they're not. To be fair, they're telling us it fits in this box. But when you do everything apart from look in the box to see what was there first,
and as you said with the Cage visual continuity, if as I suspect might happen. When we see the Enterprise again in Discovery after it's been repaired, it has the straight struts. It's got more of a white hull texture. I would have no real issue with that. Fine, yeah, that's Pike's Enterprise, the Discovery Enterprise. You could definitely retcon that. Not that we really want to, but if they treat the Enterprise properly in Discovery, and it does kind of look more similar to Kirk's Enterprise at the end of this season, I'll be a happy camper personally. Don't get me wrong.
And they get to sell new merchandise that only appears in 2 scenes.
Exactly, yeah.
Win-win.
Don't get me wrong. I love the Discovery Enterprise. It is a cool design.
Apart from the front. The view from the front is not good.
A few things I'm not happy with, but whatever. I mean, But yes, overall, it's a pretty fantastic design. I think John Hughes and Scott Snyder did a fantastic job on it.
Yeah.
So I'm not complaining about the design. It's just I'm complaining that it's been forced into this Prime, as you said, the Prime box. When we've seen everything in the Prime box many times, and this just kind of is an odd man out. So, but retconning the visual continuity of Cage is fine with me as long as it's done properly in Discovery.
Because I said to somebody the other day, and I mentioned it a minute ago, you know, you can. Is it fair to say that what is produced last erases what happened earlier? So if one random writer got a good idea and said, the reason Enterprise is called Enterprise is because of some fever dream from the future, and then they, you know, all these, or Kirk was put in command because a future person did, and he didn't earn it, and, you know, some random thing that hurts it, but then it breaks everything else that came before. Okay, visual continuity is the easiest one. If we see a TOS Enterprise in every other incarnation, and all the characters, see that as it is, does that not... I mean, you've got multiple sources to back up the truth of that. Then we've thrown Discovery, which is a single reference point, a single version saying this is what it looks like. Well, no, the rest of the evidence says no. So, I mean, does it just overwrite it, or is it not just doing its own thing and we can ignore it? Because is it fair to throw away, you know, 100 episodes of reference for 7 shots? I don't see how you could even argue that. I mean, they can do whatever they want, but until they make, you know, 4 seasons with it being the hero and be in other spin-offs, I just the argument of evidence is surely overwhelming. I mean, even so much as they have dioramas of her in other quarters and in other things, you know, it appears all the time. It's the most imaged thing. And like you said, if it was the Cage Enterprise, the launch Enterprise, if this was the Constitution herself, then as a visual tie-in between NX and Connie, TOS, it's brilliant. Apart from some of the sources, although I guess the source of thinness would kind of make sense with how flat the NX is. But they could have so easily made this design be very clever and okay, a gentle retcon, but wow, you really integrated the eras. Now you've got this direct step, and then you see it NX this, make it smaller, because we have to be smaller a little bit. That to Connie, to Reefer, it's like, wow, the eras, you can see them so broadly, but it's just a shame that they've taken that off the table, and now it is just what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's not, though.
It's revisionist history. History is written by the victors, and CBS is kind of doing that, unfortunately. They own it. they say it's canon. This is what they choose to pick. But I mean, there's real history, and then like I said, there's revisionist history, and a good historian will know each. And the revisionist history always is in favor of the victors or whatever. But it's like a breakup. There's always two sides to every story, and the person always plays the victim, no matter what's So, but the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So I don't know. With the truth lying somewhere in the middle, and having this be Pike's Enterprise, okay, that's fine. That's a nice compromise for both, if it ends up looking like Kirk's Enterprise by the end,
or at least same design, new hull plating. It's still a few years from that. You can get another visual. I mean, again, we've said the best way to approach TOS is you build the same rough shapes, because those for the most part all the designs still hold up. But then you go into the finer details and you change the materials, and if you don't want the internal corridors to look like wood, build them out of metal. You know what I mean? Keep the same rough design, but add stuff to it. Change the colors, add more detail, more texture, add more glowing bits. I mean, there's easy ways of doing it.
Yeah. But just imagine watching TOS as like a low resolution holodeck, trying to recreate the past, whereas Discovery with the new shininess is the actual HD real life how it looks.
And then you ask, well, so that shot next to K7, the Enterprise should be twice as big. That's weird. And the shot with the escape pod, is the escape pod now huge? And the shot where you start answering all these questions, and I, like I've said before, I think Discovery will be visually retconned out in a couple of years once the team finishes their run, and the next team take over, and they'll say, yeah, this was just like the JJ films are now being laid to rest. They'll say, okay, the Discovery-verse variants, it's like they were good, they made us all money with selling models, but that was what they did. Let's do something else that's prime, and if the Picard show, if they dared, on Picard's office desk to have this Enterprise, and someone walks in and says, "Oh, is that the Enterprise? Yes, 1701, the classic." And it's like, you've really just
That's what a lot of people are afraid of with the Picard show. That's what it's going to be.
I mean, that is just 100% wrong, and you can't argue at being right, unfortunately. But we're hoping common sense takes over. We're hoping smart designs. We're still hoping for that gentle retcon of the sizes of all these ships being shrunk down at some point. Not that you ever see them together with other ships, doesn't necessarily matter, but it's just a
but you gotta think that the display still says the proper dimensions for the ship, so I think that's their kind of saying this is the size of it, despite
it's interesting.
Despite what the Eagle Moss magazine says.
So you mean they, just like the J.J. Abrams films, it's still 306 meters, even though the shuttle bay is actually 900 meters, but it's still 300. They're doing that thing, aren't they? The visual, don't ignore the outsides, because it really is what you think it is.
We'll just never say the length in canon and on screen by any character. Yeah, it's there if you want to see it. And it's there if you choose, or if it's not there if you choose to ignore it. That's how it's going to work. And
that would almost be preferable. They say, everything is... It still looks like the original Connie. It's still the same design. We just made it look nicer. But it was actually still this design, really. We just updated it. But it still looks like the original in all of our history books. And it's like, what?
Trying to make sense of this is frustrating.
So we just wanted to point out that nail in the coffin of that out, because it's our job to try and make sense of what they give us, and that's only fair to them. I think they're the rights holders. They're the ones being given charge of doing this, and you hope they're thinking it through at least a little bit.
Yep.
But that is now a theory that we can lay to rest.
Yes, so not a wartime variant, because the Enterprise wasn't around for the war.
No, instead of one that's just about the same size as the Excelsior.
Yeah, I'm looking at that picture now. Anyway, guys, what do you think about this topic? Do you think that wartime variants still make sense, or because the Enterprise wasn't around for that it just doesn't make sense? Anyway, guys, put your comments down below. Have some good discussions. What do you think of this being a wartime variant? Is it? Isn't it? What are your thoughts on the design overall? We've discussed it ad nauseum. We've got a lot of videos. Go check those out as well. But if you want to have really cool debates and conversations, you can head over to our social media. Our Facebook page has a great community and a lot of great discussions happen there on a regular basis. So by all means, click the links down in the description to join those. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and just share it around. And also hit the notification icon, because now that Discovery's out, we're going to have a bunch of new ships and a bunch of new discussions, and you don't want to miss them, so get notified.
Don't think you even dream of missing them. There's so much good stuff as we break down all those little things, because they're genuinely interesting, and we think so. But if you want to support the show directly, then please do, either by going to our Patreon, which is a monthly donation scheme. You give a little bit each every month, and it mounts up and makes a huge difference. So one-time donation at trekyards@hotmail.com, or you can join our weekly lives, a couple a week, sometimes, and just, add a super chat, say what you think, and let your voice be heard, sort of thing. All to help the channel.
Absolutely. So until next time, guys, no matter which way we see you, whether on the Facebook page, alive, or our next video, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Commander Coggins. Bye, guys.
And we will not be Retcon. We will always be us.
Yeah, that's fair. Bye, guys.
Bye.